All right, welcome back. We're going to talk kids with Dr. Caitlynn. It's Lexington pediatrician, Dr. Caitlynn Iddings.
That's right. Okay, so today's topic, we're talking about respiratory viruses and vaccines for your kids coming out this fall. Of course, a lot of kids heading back to school. Good to see you this morning, Dr. Caitlynn.
Good morning.
Okay, where do you want to start this morning?
Yeah, so we talked this time last year about, the triple threat, which is RSV, flu, and COVID. And those are viruses that we, of course, keep a very close eye on this time of year, mostly looking towards Australia and people that are in the southern hemisphere because it's their winter, to kind of see what those viruses are doing, which helps us predict kind of what will happen for us this winter. So last year we talked about some of these viruses have lost their seasonality. They all came really early last year. It kind of threw us for a loop with the flu vaccine because most people are used to getting that later, October, November, December, hoping that it'll last long enough to get them all the way through March or April when it tends to kind of die down. But then it came early and it peaked in like November and December, and so a lot of people kind of missed that opportunity to get protected. So the good news is it does so far this year seem like all three of those viruses are starting to be a little more normal seasonality. So, July has passed and we haven't had a lot of RSV or flu yet, which is very reassuring, that it probably will start to kind of peak and come again in October, November, December, like it has in years past. But all that being said, we do want to make sure that we're getting kids and adults as well very protected against those three viruses so that we don't end up with the hospitals being overloaded and
which was a problem last year.
We talked about being on divert. They're full. We're having to call in extra staff. So we have three vaccines or medicines that can kind of help that. So the flu vaccine is recommended every year for babies 6 months and older. The highest age range for influenza deaths every year are the elderly over age 60, but also 6 months through 5. And so those are an especially vulnerable population that we want to make sure that you're getting your flu vaccine, especially if you're high risk and have something like asthma or some other lung disease that's going to make you get a lot sicker, right? So those should be coming out at the end of August. Usually we recommend getting those in October. I don't think it would be wrong to get that in September this year, just to make sure that if it does still come a little bit early, that you'll be protected, and it should still last you even if flu comes a little bit later into January, February type thing.
A couple of things are happening with children with respiratory viruses. One, the brand new immune systems for a lot of them. They haven't fought the bug before, but two, they get these tiny little airways.
Yes, and so that's why that age range, especially those babies that 6 month to a year, are really high risk. Especially RSV is one that gets them every year, and so we did talk a couple weeks ago about this new monoclonal antibody that is going to be approved, and it has been approved for infants. They are recommending it for newborns through 8 months of age if they're going to be in that age range during RSV season. So that's a 1-dose shot that is going to give them monoclonal antibodies that will last hopefully 5 to 6 months and get them through RSV season. That should be a really excellent tool this year. So that should be rolling out probably by October. It may even be something that if you're going to have a baby in that age range, they might offer it in the newborn nursery with the hepatitis B vaccine, so they have that antibodies from the get-go and are protected before you even leave the hospital.
Okay, so besides getting these vaccines or something like that, staying up to date on the new information there, what are some other ways parents can protect their kids this fall?
And so, same things that we learned during COVID. Hand washing, right?
The basics.
We kind of forget, oh, we still need to wash our hands. If your kid is sick, making sure you keep them, especially away from those high-risk people like grandparents, babies, because a mild cold for a 9-year-old could be RSV and bronchiolitis landing a 6-month-old in the hospital. So just being aware that we still need to be good, public servants, and if we're sick, we need to make sure we're not coughing all over our friends, washing our hands, getting the vaccines if we can, right? And then the COVID vaccine for kids, I don't think it will be routinely recommended this fall. It still will be probably recommended for the elderly or those who are high risk. But if your kid has not had the COVID vaccine before, it might be worth doing it. If they have already had this sort of initial 3-dose series, they probably don't need that one.
Okay.
Great information from Dr. Iddings as always. Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
Good to see you. It's that time of year, guys. Let's keep those kiddos safe, and adults too. Stay with us. We are back right after this.